January 16, 1917. Room 40, British Naval Intelligence, London. A team of codebreakers huddles over a partially decrypted German telegram. As they work through the coded text, the message they're revealing becomes increasingly shocking. Germany is proposing a military alliance with Mexico. If America enters the war against Germany, Mexico should attack the United States. As reward, Mexico would reclaim Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona, territories lost in the Mexican-American War 70 years earlier. The codebreakers look at each other in disbelief. This isn't just intelligence. This is dynamite. If made public, this telegram could bring neutral America into the war on Britain's side. But revealing it would expose Britain's most closely guarded secret. They have broken German codes and are reading Germany's most sensitive communications. The decision before British intelligence is enormous. Use this telegram to change the course of the war or protect their intelligence capability. The choice they make will alter history. The Zimmermann telegram is one of the most consequential pieces of intelligence in history. Its discovery, decryption, and revelation would bring the United States into World War I, tipping the balance against Germany and ultimately determining the war's outcome. But this isn't just a story about a telegram. It's a story about cryptography and code breaking, about intelligence gathering and diplomatic manipulation, about how information can be weaponized, and about how a single intercepted message can change the world. It's also a story of incredible British intelligence work, how they intercepted the telegram, broke the code, verified its authenticity, and then orchestrated its revelation in a way that achieved maximum political impact while protecting their sources and methods. And it's a story of spectacular German diplomatic incompetence, how a single telegram destroyed years of careful neutrality policy and brought Germany's worst nightmare to life. America joining the war against them. Today, we're going to tell the complete story of the Zimmermann telegram, from its origins in German strategic desperation, through its interception by British intelligence, to its explosive revelation and the chain of events that brought America to war. This is a story of spies, codebreakers, diplomats, and decisions made under pressure. It's a masterclass in intelligence, tradecraft, and political warfare. And it's a reminder that in the age of global communications, there are no secrets, only information that hasn't been discovered yet. This is a story of how one telegram changed the world. To understand why Germany sent the Zimmermann telegram, we need to understand Germany's strategic situation in early 1917. After 2.5 years of war, Germany was in trouble. On the Western Front, the war had stalemated. The Battle of Verdun and the Battle of the Somme in 1916 had killed hundreds of thousands, but changed nothing strategically. Germany couldn't break through Allied lines, and the Allies couldn't break through German lines. The British naval blockade was slowly strangling Germany. Britain's Royal Navy controlled the seas, preventing supplies from reaching Germany. Food was becoming scarce. Industrial production was suffering from lack of raw materials. German civilians were facing real hardship. Germany had one potential game changer: unrestricted submarine warfare. German U-boats could sink merchant ships bringing supplies to Britain, potentially forcing Britain to negotiate. But there was a massive problem with this strategy. It would almost certainly bring America into the war. Since the sinking of the Lusitania in 1915, which killed 128 Americans, Germany had been cautious about attacking ships that might have American passengers or crew. President Woodrow Wilson had warned that such attacks could mean war. Germany couldn't afford to fight both the British Empire and the United States simultaneously. But by January 1917, Germany was desperate. The German High Command concluded that unrestricted submarine warfare was their only path to victory. They calculated that if they unleashed their U-boats to sink everything headed to Britain, including American ships, they could force Britain to surrender within 6 months before America could mobilize and make a difference. It was a huge gamble. German leaders knew that unrestricted submarine warfare would likely bring America into the war, but they believed they could win quickly enough that American entry wouldn't matter. They were betting everything on U-boats and speed. But what if they were wrong? What if America did enter the war and made a decisive difference? Germany needed insurance, a way to keep America occupied and unable to send significant forces to Europe. That's where Mexico came in. In 1917, relations between the United States and Mexico were terrible. The Mexican Revolution had been raging since 1910, creating chaos on America's southern border. In 1914, American forces had occupied the Mexican port of Veracruz. In 1916, the Mexican revolutionary Pancho Villa had raided American territory, killing Americans. President Wilson had sent General John Pershing and 10,000 troops into Mexico in pursuit of Villa, an operation that accomplished little except angering Mexico and demonstrating American military unpreparedness. To German strategic planners, Mexico looked like an opportunity. If war with America came, why not encourage Mexico to attack the United States? Even if Mexico didn't win, it would tie down American troops on the southern border and prevent them from deploying to Europe. Better yet, why not promise Mexico the territories it had lost to America in 1848? Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona had been Mexican before the Mexican-American War. What if Germany promised to help Mexico reclaim them? It was a fantasy. Mexico had no capability to successfully invade the United States. The Mexican government was weak, divided, and struggling with internal revolution. The Mexican army couldn't match American military power, and there was no way Germany could provide meaningful military support to Mexico with the British Navy controlling the Atlantic. But from Berlin, looking at a map and desperate for any advantage, it seemed worth trying. If nothing else, the threat of a Mexican attack might distract America and delay or reduce American involvement in Europe. So German Foreign Secretary Arthur Zimmermann drafted a telegram to the German ambassador in Mexico City, instructing him to propose this alliance if and when America entered the war. It was this telegram that British intelligence would intercept, and that would bring Germany's worst nightmare to reality. Arthur Zimmermann was Germany's foreign secretary, essentially the equivalent of the American Secretary of State. He was 58 years old in 1917, a career diplomat who had risen through the German Foreign Service. Zimmermann was not stupid. He was an experienced diplomat who understood international relations. But like many German officials, he had a fatal blind spot. He underestimated both Britain's intelligence capabilities and America's likely response to German provocations. Zimmermann believed that the telegram would be secure. It would be sent via encrypted diplomatic channels that Germany considered unbreakable. Even if somehow intercepted, the code would protect its contents. And the proposal was conditional. It would only be activated if America entered the war, which hadn't happened yet. What Zimmermann didn't know was that British intelligence had already broken German diplomatic codes. They were reading Germany's most secret communications, and they had access to multiple channels for intercepting German telegrams. When Zimmermann sent his telegram on January 16, 1917, he thought it was secure communication to his ambassador in Mexico. In reality, he was handing British intelligence the most valuable piece of information they would obtain in the entire war, and doing it in a code they could read. It was one of the most consequential failures of communication security in history, and it would cost Germany the war. Room 40 was the cryptanalysis section of British naval intelligence, housed in the old Admiralty building in London. It was one of the most important secret operations of World War I, and one of the best-kept secrets in British history. The unit was established in 1914, shortly after the war began, when the Royal Navy captured German code books from a sunken German cruiser. With these code books, British codebreakers could read German naval communications. Over time, Room 40 expanded beyond naval codes to diplomatic communications. They recruited brilliant mathematicians, linguists, and puzzle solvers. Among them was Nigel de Grey, a young publisher turned codebreaker, and Reverend William Montgomery, a German scholar. These two will be the first to decrypt the Zimmermann telegram. Room 40 had several advantages. First, Britain controlled most of the world's transatlantic telegraph cables. When Germany wanted to send messages across the Atlantic, they often had to use cables that passed through British-controlled territory. Britain could intercept these messages. Second, Room 40 had broken multiple German codes. The Germans used several different cipher systems, believing this provided security through redundancy. But Room 40 had obtained code books through various means, captures, espionage, and code breaking, and could read many German communications. Third, Room 40 operated in complete secrecy. Very few people in the British government even knew it existed. This compartmentalization protected its sources and methods. When the Zimmermann telegram was sent on January 16, 1917, it passed through multiple channels that Room 40 could access. The code breakers intercepted it almost immediately. Now they just had to decode it, and then figure out what to do with it. The Zimmermann telegram's journey from Berlin to Mexico City was complicated, and that complexity would prove crucial to how Britain eventually revealed it. Zimmermann sent the telegram via multiple routes. The primary route was through German diplomatic channels using American telegraph cables, a bizarre arrangement that needs explanation. In 1917, Germany had no direct telegraph connection to the Americas. British forces had cut German cables at the start of the war. But President Wilson, trying to facilitate peace negotiations, had allowed Germany to use American diplomatic cables for encrypted messages between Berlin and the German embassy in Washington. Wilson thought this would help peace efforts. Instead, Germany used it to plot against America. The telegram went from Berlin to Washington via American cables, which the Germans assumed were secure. But the cable route passed through Britain, where Room 40 could intercept it. The telegram was encrypted using German diplomatic code 0075, which Room 40 had partially broken. From Washington, the German embassy forwarded the telegram to Mexico City, re-encrypting it in an older, weaker German code, 13,040, which Room 40 had completely broken. The Germans did this because their embassy in Mexico City had the older code book, but not the newer one. This re-encryption, in a weaker code, would prove crucial. It gave Room 40 a second intercept in a code they could fully read, allowing it to confirm and complete their decryption. Finally, Germany also sent the telegram via a backup route, wireless transmission from Germany's high-power radio station at Nauen, broadcasting to German stations in the Americas. Room 40 intercepted this too. So Room 40 had multiple intercepts of the same telegram in different codes via different routes. This redundancy would allow them to decrypt the message with confidence and later to obscure how they obtained it. The telegram that Zimmermann thought was secure had been intercepted multiple times by an enemy who could read it. All that remained was the actual decryption, and that would take several weeks of painstaking work. On January 17, 1917, one day after the telegram was sent, Nigel de Grey was working through intercepted German messages at Room 40 when he came across a particularly long, encrypted telegram. It had been intercepted from both cable and wireless transmissions, suggesting it was important. De Grey began the painstaking work of decryption. Even though Room 40 had partially broken code 0075, decryption wasn't automatic. You had to work through the coded groups, looking up numbers in captured or reconstructed code books, filling in gaps, making educated guesses. As de Grey worked through the message, certain words began to emerge. Mexico, Japan, war with the United States. He was getting fragments, but not the full picture. He called over his colleague, Reverend Montgomery, who knew German better. Together, they worked through the text. What emerged shocked them. This wasn't routine diplomatic traffic. This was Germany proposing a military alliance with Mexico against the United States. Germany was offering to help Mexico reclaim American territory. The implications were staggering. If this telegram were made public, it could bring America into the war. But there were problems. The decryption was incomplete. Some groups remained unclear, and revealing the telegram would expose Britain's code-breaking operation. Over the following weeks, Room 40 continued working on the telegram. They filled in gaps using context and additional intercepts. They double-checked their work. This was too important to get wrong. The breakthrough came in late February when British agents in Mexico City obtained a copy of the telegram as it had been delivered to the German embassy there. This version was encrypted in the older, fully broken code 13040. Room 40 could decrypt it completely and with confidence. Now they had the full text. We intend to begin unrestricted submarine warfare on the 1st of February. We shall endeavor, in spite of this, to keep the United States neutral. In the event of this not succeeding, we make Mexico a proposal of alliance on the following basis: make war together, may piece together generous financial support and an understanding on our part that Mexico is to reconquer the lost territory in Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. The telegram went on to suggest that Mexico should invite Japan to join the alliance as well, bringing another potential enemy into play against America. Room 40 had the smoking gun. Now, they had to decide what to do with it. The decision would require careful intelligence, tradecraft, and political maneuvering at the highest levels of British government. British intelligence faced a dilemma. The Zimmermann telegram was incredibly valuable, potentially war-winning intelligence. But using it publicly meant exposing sources and methods that were even more valuable. If Britain revealed the telegram, Germany would know their codes were broken. They would change their codes immediately, and Room 40 would go blind. All the intelligence they were gathering about German naval operations, military movements, diplomatic initiatives would disappear. Moreover, there was a credibility problem. If Britain simply announced they had intercepted and decoded a German telegram, would Americans believe them, or would they suspect British forgery? Propaganda designed to manipulate America into the war? Britain had been conducting a propaganda campaign in America for years, try to influence American public opinion against Germany. Americans knew this and were skeptical of British claims. If Britain said, "Look, we intercepted this telegram showing Germany wants to attack you," many Americans would suspect a trick. The man who had to solve this problem was Admiral William Blinker Hall, the director of naval intelligence. Hall was one of the most brilliant intelligence officers of the war, creative, ruthless, and utterly dedicated to defeating Germany. Hall understood that it wasn't enough to have the telegram. He had to orchestrate its revelation in a way that maximized political impact while protecting Room 40 secrets and ensuring American credibility. He devised a brilliant plan. Instead of Britain revealing the telegram directly, they would arrange for the Americans to discover it independently through Mexican channels, in a way that wouldn't expose Room 40's role. This required careful coordination with the British government at the highest level. Hall briefed Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour, who grasped the telegram's importance immediately. Together, they planned how to bring the telegram to American attention in a believable way. But first, they needed to verify the telegram's authenticity beyond any doubt. And they needed to wait for the right moment, when its revelation would have maximum impact. On January 31st, 1917, 2 weeks after sending the Zimmermann telegram, Germany announced it would begin unrestricted submarine warfare on February 1st. All ships in waters around Britain, including neutral American vessels, would be sunk without warning. Germany was activating the first part of the Zimmermann telegram's plan, the submarine campaign that would likely bring America into the war. Now the proposed alliance with Mexico was supposed to provide insurance against American intervention. President Wilson was furious. On February 3rd, he broke diplomatic relations with Germany, a step short of war, but a clear warning. American public opinion was turning against Germany, but Wilson still hoped to avoid war. He was a progressive reformer who believed in peace and arbitration. He needed more than German submarine attacks to convince Congress and the American people that war was necessary. This was the moment Admiral Hall had been waiting for. American sentiment was shifting against Germany. The revelation of the Zimmermann telegram now would tip America decisively toward war. But Hall still had to handle the revelation carefully. Hall authorized British agents in Mexico City to obtain the telegram from Mexican telegraph files. They bribed a Mexican telegraph official to provide a copy of the telegram as it had been delivered to the German embassy. This copy was in the older German code 13040, which Room 40 had completely broken. Now Hall had a cover story. Britain had obtained the telegram not by breaking codes, but by traditional espionage in Mexico. This was partially true. They had obtained a Mexican copy, but it obscured Room 40's role and protected their code-breaking operation. On February 19th, British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour summoned the American ambassador in London, Walter Hines Page. In a private meeting, Balfour showed Page the decoded telegram and explained how Britain had obtained it, emphasizing the Mexican source, not mentioning Room 40. Page was shocked. He immediately recognized the telegram's significance. He cabled Washington with the news, sending the decoded text to President Wilson. The fuse was lit. When President Wilson read the decoded Zimmermann telegram on February 24th, he faced a credibility problem. Was it real, or was it a British forgery designed to manipulate America into the war? Wilson was no fool. He knew Britain desperately wanted American intervention. He knew British intelligence was capable of forgery. And he knew that if he took America to war based on a forged document, the political consequences would be catastrophic. Wilson ordered his own verification. He had American intelligence check with the Western Union Telegraph Company, which had transmitted the telegram from Washington to Mexico City at the German embassy's request. Western Union confirmed, yes, such a telegram had been sent by the German embassy. The transmission records were genuine. This was crucial verification from an independent American source. The telegram was real. Germany had actually proposed this alliance. Even so, Wilson hesitated. He had campaigned for re-election in 1916 with the slogan, "He kept us out of war." He had won by promising continued neutrality. He didn't want war, but he was also a realist. Germany was attacking American ships, killing American citizens, and now apparently plotting to help Mexico attack American territory. On February 28th, Wilson authorized the telegram's release to the press. The next day, March 1st, American newspapers published a full text of the Zimmermann telegram. The reaction was explosive. Front-page headlines across America screamed about German treachery. Editorial pages thundered with outrage. The telegram was everything Americans feared about German aggression, a plot against American territory, an attempt to turn Mexico and possibly Japan against the United States. On March 3rd, 1917, at a press conference in Berlin, Arthur Zimmermann was asked by American journalists about the telegram. He could have denied it. He could have claimed forgery. He could have said no comment. Any of these responses would have left room for doubt and kept American isolationists arguing that the telegram might be fake. Instead, Zimmermann admitted it was genuine. He confirmed that, yes, Germany had proposed a military alliance with Mexico against the United States. Why did Zimmermann confess? Historians still debate this. Some suggest he was following Bismarck's dictum, "Never lie when the truth will serve." Others think he believed the proposal was defensible. It was only supposed to activate if America entered the war, so it was merely defensive planning. Still others suggest he simply didn't understand how damaging the revelation was to Germany's position in America. Whatever his reasoning, it was a catastrophic diplomatic blunder. Zimmermann had just authenticated the most damaging piece of intelligence against Germany, removing all American doubts. Every American isolationist and pro-German voice that had been claiming the telegram was a British forgery was suddenly silenced. American public opinion shifted dramatically. The telegram had already angered many Americans. Zimmermann's confession enraged them. This wasn't British propaganda. This was Germany's foreign secretary admitting to plotting against America. The state of Texas, which Germany had promised to give back to Mexico, was particularly outraged. So was Arizona and New Mexico. Southwestern states that had been largely isolationist suddenly demanded war with Germany. Even Americans who had been sympathetic to Germany were shocked. German-American communities, which had been defending their heritage and arguing against war with the fatherland, fell silent. How could they defend a Germany that wanted to give American territory to Mexico? President Wilson now had the public support he needed for war. The Zimmermann telegram had accomplished what years of British propaganda and German submarine attacks had failed to do. It had united Americans behind intervention. On April 2, 1917, President Wilson asked Congress for a declaration of war against Germany. On April 6, Congress voted to declare war. America was in World War I. The Zimmermann telegram had changed history. American entry into World War I was a turning point. In April 1917, when America declared war, the Allies were in serious trouble. The French army was exhausted and would soon experience widespread mutinies. The British were suffering heavy casualties. Russia was collapsing into revolution and would soon leave the war. Italy had been defeated at Caporetto. Germany's submarine warfare was sinking ships faster than they could be replaced. If America hadn't entered the war in 1917, Germany might have won, but American entry changed everything. America brought fresh troops, millions of them. American industry began producing weapons, ammunition, and supplies. American loans propped up Allied economies. American farms fed Allied populations. And, crucially, American involvement meant Germany now faced effectively unlimited Allied resources. Germany's strategic calculation that they could win through submarine warfare before America could mobilize proved disastrously wrong. American troops began arriving in France in 1917. By 1918, over 1 million American soldiers were in France, with millions more in training. The psychological impact was as important as the military one. German soldiers knew that fresh American troops were arriving constantly, while Germany's resources were exhausted. Allied morale improved knowing that American reinforcements were coming. The balance of the war had shifted decisively. Germany's spring 1918 offensive, their last desperate attempt to win before American forces arrived in strength, failed. By summer 1918, Allied forces, now including hundreds of thousands of Americans, counterattacked. Germany's army collapsed. On November 11, 1918, Germany signed an armistice. World War I killed over 16 million people. American casualties were relatively light, about 116,000 dead. But American intervention was decisive in ending the war. Without America, the war might have continued into 1919 or beyond, with millions more casualties. The Zimmermann telegram, by bringing America into the war in April 1917, had shortened the conflict and determined its outcome. One intercepted message had changed the course of the 20th century. The Zimmermann telegram affair is considered one of the greatest intelligence coups in history. British intelligence accomplished something remarkable. They turned an intercepted message into a war-winning strategic advantage while protecting their sources and methods. Let's examine what made this operation so brilliant. First, multiple intercepts. Room 40 intercepted the telegram via multiple channels, cables and wireless, giving them redundancy and the ability to cross-check their decryption. This ensured accuracy and provided cover stories for how they obtained it. Second, patient decryption. They worked on the telegram for weeks, filling gaps, verifying meanings, ensuring they had it right. They waited until they obtained a Mexican copy in the fully broken code before proceeding. This patience ensured they wouldn't act on a misunderstanding. Third, strategic timing. Admiral Hall held the telegram for weeks, waiting for the optimal moment to reveal it. He released it after Germany had announced unrestricted submarine warfare, when American sentiment was already turning against Germany, but Wilson still needed a push toward war. Fourth, cover story. By obtaining the Mexican copy through espionage and presenting that as the source, Britain protected Room 40's code-breaking operation. Germany suspected British code-breaking, but couldn't prove it. They changed some codes, but not all, allowing Room 40 to continue reading German traffic. Fifth, authentication strategy. By arranging for American verification through Western Union records and ultimately getting Zimmermann himself to confess, Britain ensured maximum credibility. This wasn't British propaganda. This was authenticated German policy. Finally, political coordination. Hall worked closely with the Foreign Office and ultimately with American officials to ensure the revelation had maximum political impact. This wasn't just an intelligence operation. It was intelligence enabling policy, which is the ultimate goal of intelligence work. The Zimmermann telegram operation is still studied at intelligence agencies worldwide as a model of how to turn raw intelligence into strategic advantage. It combined technical capability, code-breaking, operational security, protecting sources, strategic thinking, timing, and political acumen, managing the revelation. It was intelligence work at its finest, and it changed the world. Room 40 continued operating until the end of the war, reading German communications and providing crucial intelligence to British commanders. They helped the Royal Navy win the Battle of Jutland by warning of German fleet movements. They tracked German submarines. They decoded diplomatic traffic, revealing German attempts to keep Russia in the war and Japanese plans in the Pacific. But the Zimmermann telegram remained their greatest triumph. After the war, Room 40's existence remained classified for years. The codebreakers returned to civilian life, most never speaking publicly about their work. Nigel de Grey, who first decoded the Zimmermann telegram, returned to publishing. Reverend Montgomery went back to his church. Admiral Hall retired from the Navy. Their story wasn't fully told until the 1930s, and even then, many details remained classified until after World War II. The full extent of Room 40's code-breaking success wasn't publicly known until the 1980s. Room 40's legacy lived on. During World War II, the organization evolved into Bletchley Park, the famous code-breaking center where Alan Turing and others broke the German Enigma code. Many techniques pioneered by Room 40 were refined at Bletchley Park. Today, the Government Communications Headquarters, GCHQ, Britain's Signals Intelligence Agency, traces its lineage directly back to Room 40. The Zimmermann telegram operation established principles that still guide intelligence work: patience, verification, strategic timing, protection of sources, and political coordination. The intelligence professionals who decoded and revealed the Zimmermann telegram helped establish the modern profession of signals intelligence. Their legacy is every codebreaker, every signals intelligence analyst, every intelligence officer who works to turn intercepted communications into strategic advantage. It's worth considering the counterfactual. What if the Zimmermann telegram had never been intercepted? Or what if Room 40 couldn't break the code? Or what if British intelligence had bungled the revelation? Without the telegram, would America have entered World War I? Possibly, but not certainly, and not as quickly. Germany's unrestricted submarine warfare was angering Americans and killing American citizens. Eventually, this might have pushed America into the war. But President Wilson was deeply reluctant. American public opinion was divided. Powerful isolationist voices argued against intervention. Without the telegram, America might have entered the war months later, or not at all. Those months mattered enormously. The longer America remained neutral, the better Germany's chances of winning. If America had stayed neutral through 1917, France and Britain would have been in desperate straits by 1918. Russia left the war in December 1917, freeing German troops to concentrate on the Western Front. Without American reinforcements arriving, Germany's spring 1918 offensive might have succeeded. A German victory in World War I would have completely changed the 20th century. No harsh Treaty of Versailles, so perhaps no Hitler and no Nazi Germany. But also German domination of Europe, with unknowable consequences. The entire history of the 20th century depended on America entering the war in 1917. And America's entry depended on the Zimmermann telegram, on British intelligence intercepting it, decoding it, and revealing it at exactly the right moment. One telegram, one intelligence operation. The course of history changed. What about Mexico, the country Germany wanted to recruit as an ally? Mexico's reaction to the telegram's revelation was carefully calculated. Mexican President Venustiano Carranza was in a difficult position. Germany had approached Mexico with this proposal, which could have appealed to Mexican nationalism, the chance to reclaim lost territory from 1848. But Carranza was also a realist. He knew Mexico couldn't successfully invade the United States. The Mexican army was weak. The country was torn by revolution, and there was no way Germany could provide meaningful support with the British Navy controlling the Atlantic. The proposal was fantasy. Moreover, if Mexico attacked America, the result would be American military occupation of Mexico. Carranza had just consolidated power after years of revolutionary chaos. The last thing he needed was American invasion. So Mexico officially denied any involvement with the German proposal and declared neutrality. Privately, Carranza was furious with Germany for putting Mexico in this position. The telegram had exposed Mexico to American suspicion and threatened to damage Mexico's sovereignty. Mexico maintained armed neutrality throughout World War I, carefully avoiding actions that might provoke American intervention. The Zimmermann telegram's revelation had the opposite effect from what Germany intended. It made Mexican-American cooperation more likely, not less, as Mexico worked to reassure America of its peaceful intentions. Germany's attempt to use Mexico as a strategic distraction had backfired completely. The Zimmermann telegram offers crucial lessons about communication security, lessons that remain relevant in the digital age. First lesson, there are no unbreakable codes. Germany believed their diplomatic codes were secure. They were wrong. Every code can potentially be broken, especially if the enemy obtains code books or has talented cryptanalysts and enough intercepted traffic to work with. Second lesson, communications infrastructure is vulnerable. Germany didn't control the telegraph cables their messages traveled through. This gave Britain physical access to intercept messages. Today, internet traffic routes through infrastructure controlled by various nations, creating similar vulnerabilities. Third lesson, redundancy can create additional vulnerabilities. Germany sent the telegram via multiple routes, thinking this provided security. Instead, it gave British intelligence multiple chances to intercept and cross-check their decryption. Each additional transmission was another opportunity for compromise. Fourth lesson, human factors matter. Germany's decision to re-encrypt the telegram in an older, weaker code for transmission to Mexico, because that's what code book they had there, was a fatal error. The weakest link in security is often human decisions about how to implement security measures. Fifth lesson, strategic communications require strategic thinking. Zimmermann sent an explosive political message using a communication method, American diplomatic cables, that routed through enemy territory, Britain. This was a massive failure of strategic thinking about communication security. Today, these lessons apply to digital communications. Encryption can be broken. Internet infrastructure is vulnerable to interception. Multiple transmissions create multiple attack surfaces. Human errors compromise security. And highly sensitive communications require thinking about not just technical security, but strategic vulnerability. The Zimmermann telegram is taught at cybersecurity courses and intelligence training programs as a case study in communication security failure. The technologies have changed, but the principles remain the same. The Zimmermann telegram affair remains relevant to modern intelligence and international relations in several ways. First, it demonstrates the power of signals intelligence. The ability to intercept and decode enemy communications provides enormous strategic advantage. Modern intelligence agencies, NSA, GCHQ, and their equivalents worldwide, conduct signals intelligence operations that are the direct descendants of Room 40's work. Second, it shows how intelligence must be carefully managed to support policy. Raw intelligence is worthless if it can't be used. Room 40 didn't just decode the telegram. They orchestrated its revelation to achieve maximum political impact while protecting sources. This integration of intelligence and policy remains crucial. Third, it illustrates the tensions between using intelligence and protecting sources. Every time you use intelligence, you risk exposing how you obtained it. This tension is inherent in intelligence work. Room 40's solution, creating a cover story about Mexican espionage, is still used today when intelligence agencies need to use sensitive intelligence without exposing sources and methods. Fourth, it demonstrates the importance of strategic patience. Admiral Hall held the telegram for weeks, waiting for the optimal moment to reveal it. Intelligence work requires not just discovering information, but knowing when and how to use it for maximum effect. Finally, it shows how single pieces of intelligence can have outsized historical impact. Most intelligence work involves piecing together fragments to understand broader patterns. But occasionally, a single intercept, like the Zimmermann telegram, can change everything. In today's world of encrypted communications, cyber warfare, and global information networks, the principles established by the Zimmermann telegram affair remain fundamental to intelligence work. The technologies change, but the chess game between those trying to keep secrets and those trying to discover them continues. The Zimmermann telegram was 170 words that changed the world. Sent in secret, intercepted by Britain, decoded by codebreakers, revealed at the perfect moment, and foolishly confirmed by Zimmermann himself. It brought America into World War I and determined the war's outcome. For Germany, it was a catastrophic failure of communication security and diplomatic judgment. They sent an explosive political message through insecure channels, underestimated their enemy's intelligence capabilities, and then admitted its authenticity when they should have denied it. It was a masterclass in how not to conduct secret diplomacy. For Britain, it was an intelligence triumph. Room 40's codebreakers discovered it, decoded it, and Admiral Hall orchestrated its revelation brilliantly. They turned an intercepted telegram into a war-winning strategic advantage while protecting their sources and methods. It was intelligence work at its finest. For America, it was a provocation that ended neutrality. President Wilson and the American people could ignore many things. They had ignored German submarine warfare for nearly 2 years. But they couldn't ignore a German plot to give American territory to Mexico. The telegram united American opinion behind intervention in a way that years of British propaganda had failed to achieve. For Mexico, it was an embarrassment, being used as a pawn in Germany's strategic game without having any realistic ability to benefit from the proposal. The broader lesson is about how information shapes history. The Zimmermann telegram shows that in the modern world there are no secrets, only information that hasn't been discovered yet. It shows that communications infrastructure creates strategic vulnerabilities. It shows that intelligence, properly used, can be more powerful than armies. Most importantly, it shows that small actions can have enormous consequences. Arthur Zimmermann probably spent 20 minutes drafting this telegram. The codebreakers spent weeks decoding it. Admiral Hall spent weeks planning its revelation. Those combined efforts, maybe 100 hours of work total, changed the course of the 20th century. Today, the Zimmermann telegram is remembered as one of history's most consequential pieces of intelligence. It brought America into World War I. It helped secure Allied victory. It demonstrated the power of signals intelligence. And it established principles of intelligence tradecraft that remain relevant over a century later. One telegram, 170 words. The world changed forever. Thank you for watching this documentary about the Zimmermann telegram, one of history's most consequential intelligence operations. If you found this story fascinating, please subscribe, and share. Intelligence history shapes our world in ways we often don't recognize.